What's up guys, MikeCoco back here, bringing you guys a new video on the new December game update. And this month we have two new heroes and a bunch of events that'll help pretty much everybody. Um, so I'm going to go with the two heroes first. The two new heroes are actually very interesting, and I'm going to say this right from the start. I don't know too much about them because their skills are very interesting. So the first hero is a Season 8 spear user. His skill is a amalgamation of like Arthur and something like Claire. It's kind of weird because it's a skill that is much easier to be described when you actually use it. So essentially, it's a similar skill to Arthur where you get a buff that lasts for 3 turns, but instead you're able to actually cast it on a certain column or a certain row or whatever. And then you get the attack buff, which is 200% at level 50. And I believe this should raise up to 300% like Arthur. I don't exactly remember how much Arthur's is. I can check that really quick. Because it'll be important to see whether or not they share the same damage. Alright, so it probably goes up to 250%, I'm assuming, at level 100. Which would make sense, a 1% increase per level. Now, going back to his other skill, you saw there was a little icon at the bottom. And that's like the Fury Thief portion. So, my guess is that he's a multi-target Fury Thief simply because you can test it here in preview. If you attack these like things a bunch of times to, give them Fury and then you steal all at once, you'll end up with somewhere around 800 Fury. And if you repeat the same test with Claire, you'll also notice that Claire also gains 800 Fury at the end of it. And Claire is a multi-target Fury Thief. So by assumption, we can assume that he's also a multi-target Fury Thief. While people like Jarkin, if you try the same method at least, you'll get back 700 Fury. So, and we know Jarkin is a single target Fury Thief, so that's how my assumption is that he's a multi-target Fury Thief. So don't go out and throw your single target Fury Thieves just yet. You'll still need them. Now the interesting part is, like I said, the little icon at the bottom. Once you use a skill, it steals Fury on the initial turn you use the skill. Because you see we're at 700 now. But I haven't racked up like all of the Fury yet, so it would go up to 800. And you can see this little icon. Apparently this icon is a kind of like a dot Fury Thief. It's a Fury Thief over time. I'm not sure how that works because you can't really test that in Explore because every turn it resets your Fury back down to 500. But essentially it also means that you can't actually steal Fury for the next 2 turns, because once you use your skill, you can't use Fury on that turn, and then you can't use Fury on the next turn. Or use your skill, I mean. So you can only steal every 2 turns, which is kind of awkward, at least. So you can steal Fury, and then on the next turn you can't do anything, and you just have to hope that the Fury dot here steals Fury for 3 turns. You have to hope that it steals enough Fury for you. And it's not a bad idea because he does have a forced normal attack after, and normal attack helps gain Fury as well, especially if you give him a really good spear. And so the idea of his skill is actually not that bad. Along with his mythic skill, which increases the activation chance for spear heroes, it means that if you give him a high level active spear, he can potentially be very useful. And so I'm really interested and curious as to how this Fury 3-turn Fury steal thing works, because it's interesting. We've never had a hero like this before. But just based off of his skill, I think it's safe to say he's a pretty good hero. All of his aspects combine really well. For example, like I said, the Spear God increases activation chance, and it's perfect because he's limited to a normal attack for 2 turns, or every 2 turns. And yeah, I think he's a pretty good hero. Time will tell if his Fury Steal actually steals enough over those 3 turns. So if you do have him, please let me know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think he's a pretty great hero for now until we find out, oh, his Fury Steal is actually terrible. It's not worth it because you can only use it every 3 turns. Whatever. So next hero is a mythic hero. It is Indra, God of Thunder. She's a gun hero, and she has almost a 2k agility buff over the last gun hero, which I believe is Gabriel. So that's a pretty decent buff in agility. Her skill is a 200 fury attack in a cross area. Decreases defense, increases attack, and increases damage done to bosses. So it's kind of reminiscent of Uriel's skill with the costume. And her mythic skill is to increase attack for gun wielding heroes. So again, it suits her very well because she is in fact a gun user. And the skill itself, it's a 40% defense reduction at level 50. I don't know if it goes past until I think it's like 100% or something. I know like Sarah has some crazy defense reduction, and she gets an attack boost, not buff, boost by 25%. So I actually thought it would be a 50% buff at level 50, but turns out it's not. So by this calculation, if it's if it's 0.5% per level, then at level 100 it'll be 100, or it'll be a 50% attack buff. So it's gonna be on not that great compared to, like, you know, the 75% attack buffers like Rag or even Gabriel, or I don't know, I forget some of the other heroes. But she does get to increase the damage dealt to bosses by 30%, and I'm not sure actually if this caps at 50 or if it goes past. So if Uriel's, because Uriel also has this increased damage dealt to bosses, so I suspect if Uriel's skill raises past 30%, then Indra's will as well. If Uriel's doesn't, and it's probably capped at 30%. I think War God also has the skill capped, or a damage Delta bosses. No, it doesn't. Never mind. I was thinking of someone else. So Indra, not sure yet. As always, mythic heroes I'm not too familiar with because I don't have the ability to get them. If this raises to 50%, which it probably should, her skill is not going to be that bad. It's going to be 50%, and then a 30%, which is, you know, it's not terrible. Could be a bit better if this was like, you know, a 75%, but that would probably raise controversy over being overpowered, because then she would have a like over 110% just from the skill alone, which is kind of ridiculous. But she does deal damage in a cross, and for all of the non-mythic heroes, pretty much 90% of the cross users actually deal higher damage compared to their row or column equivalent. Now, they deal increased damage on the target that you select, but the surrounding targets will get less damage dealt. You can see that there's like a 58 and there's like an 83 or something. Yeah, so you can see that the side targets, like the surrounding targets, actually get less damage compared to the first, like the initial selected target. But on bosses, it's not going to matter. It's going to be the same target. So in that sense, the cross is actually more useful. So the cross, I think it's not terrible. I mean, for mobs, it's generally not preferred, but for bosses, it's definitely better because you're getting a guaranteed. I think cross is like 2.09 STF for non-mythic. So for mythic heroes, it's probably even higher. So that's pretty much it for Indra. I don't want to go on too much about these heroes because I don't really have them right now, so I can't really say much. It's just my assumption for now. The part I do want to talk about are the new events, actually, and they're really important because we get some pretty nice costumes, get some pretty nice stuff in general. So the first one is Adriel of Darkness costume. Now you can see here that she does have a costume. Now the costume is not that great. It's only a 5% increase in stats, and the only thing it adds is it adds a reduction in critical hit for the enemy by 40%. So it's kind of similar to Daphne. So this costume is not that great, but it's only one heart inside your Chrono. So if you see it in your Chrono, you know, you might as well get it. If you don't see it in your Chrono, it's fine because, like I said, the skill is not that useful. It's just a 40% reduction in critical hit, and like the only thing that would affect would be like PvP, in my opinion. And even then, you know, it'll probably get cleansed away, so it doesn't really matter too much. So that's it for Adriel's costume. Just keep your eye on the Chrono, you know, refresh occasionally, you know, if you get your free refreshers, you can refresh it. Some of my guildmates already found her costume on like the first day, which is really incredible. So you kind of have to camp your Chrono a bit, similar to Rideran's costume a few months ago. Now the next update is the costume, or not? It is a costume, but it's from an event. And let's see if I can get to this event. All right. So this event, it's kind of similar to the trial event, except you can get an additional reward for attempting bounty hunts for 4 times. You get these smelly stockings, and what you do with these smelling stockings is that you go to the naked tree. You can also find them in the map itself, and you can exchange it for a bunch of stuff. You can exchange it for Adriel of Darkness. You get a Claire's Christmas costume set. Now this is actually really important. It's not just a costume. You also get a legendary Claire ticket, which is really useful. And you also get that costume, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And you get a bunch of other stuff you can purchase. It's similar to the Ione event, and we can go in. I just want to show you guys the location of the tree. Oh, what? Okay, bugs. So yeah, there's snow, kind of usual. Now let's see if I can find a naked tree. Where is it? Not actually right here. He's actually huge. Look at that. He's actually huge. But anyway, the costume for Claire is actually really good because it's, despite the fact it's only a 5% increase in stats, she gets in change in her fury skill. Apparently she steals a large amount of fury now. I'm not sure what that means. It could mean that she either turns into a single target fury thief, or she gets the ability to increase her fury stealing past level 50. So when you, some heroes, when you hit after level 51, they actually steal more fury. The only hero that I know that does this right now, I think, is Husky. Khalid doesn't do this. He always steals a base of, I think, 500 or 600, depending on if you want to count his skill as part of the fury cost. But he always steals a constant 600, despite the level he's at. So I'm curious as to what this means by steals a large amount of fury, but regardless, it'll make her even better because it means that, you know what, she steals more fury. I'm hoping that it means she can steal more fury against single targets as well, because that's where I think she's more useful, is against single targets. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The costume, despite it's literally like a one-word change, but I think it's really important. It's gonna be pretty important to get that extra fury, because as you know, the multi-target fury thieves they don't have good return on fury against single targets, which is a problem. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for Claire's costume. Just get by those events. You don't even have to like actually complete everything. You can just like try it and then exit, and you get that smelly stocking. And you need 17, so I think it's like 5 days and you'll get the entire set. Now the next event is Nipper. Now it's a strange event. We had a similar event to it back in the day, but, or not back, like back a few months ago, but I don't remember what it was called. And so basically you have to go around the city, or like the town of Nottingham, and you have to try to find Nipper. And when you find him, he'll give you like a choice between a ticket, like reward tickets, or like a box that gives you like materials like rune essence and stuff. There's an entire post on the Facebook page with all the possible rewards, so I'm not going to talk about that. You can just like look at it there. But the main point is that you want to find Nipper. Now it's actually kind of difficult to find, so you have to like look around and hopefully ask your guildmates, because it is, like I said, not easy to find him. Like I have no idea where he is right now. But when you see him, he's gonna be like a big red like blob, so it's gonna be not too difficult, I suspect. It might be easier if you increase your draw distance, because that way you can see like further in the map. But yeah, just go and find it, and just share it with your guildmates or whatever, and that's pretty much it. You can get a choice between I think it was rank 6 tickets, like his own tickets, or a bunch of resources. So it depends on whether or not you want legendary essence, or if you want materials. So there is that, and that might actually be it for this update. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the events in this update. It's quite packed, I would say. The two events is actually pretty nice for like the Nipper, finding Nipper thing, and the Claire uh, costume, because the Claire costume is quite important. I think Claire is still a very useful hero for free players. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Peace.